Why? Why did these heads roll before the sun had even retreated from the heart of the sky? What did these two men do to have their blood spilled with a single strike before the crowds of Riyadh? Was it treason? Was it betrayal? Or was it a crime that shook the very foundations of the royal throne? To understand why the sword bowed over the necks of those meant to protect the law, we must return to that ill-fated night in the late 70s, when the desert was a sanctuary of safety, before it transformed into the stage for a crime beyond imagination. This crime took place in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in the capital city, Riyadh. In the late 70s, Riyadh was a rising city, building its new neighborhoods with spacious, concrete villas and modern planning under the rule of King Khalid. But in that land, the sun dictates the schedule of life. The intense heat makes the day a time for stillness, while real life begins after 7 in the evening. This is when families head out to seek the cool breezes at the city's edges. It wasn't strange to find families pitching tents at midnight and staying until 3 in the dawn. This was the golden hour for tranquility. Our protagonist, a Saudi father, waited until the sun's fire subsided and took his family, his wife and 2 daughters, away from the city's noise. He drove for several kilometers until the streetlights faded. Choosing a quiet spot amidst the sands, he lit his fire, and the sound of the Dala coffee pot began to blend with the absolute silence of the desert. He felt total security. In those nights, the desert was the most honest place for families. But as he was pouring the coffee, the darkness was pierced by the powerful beam of a car approaching at an unnatural speed, heading directly toward their tent. In the middle of that silence, the high beams of a police car violated the family's privacy. The father wasn't afraid. He had that innate respect for men of security. He stood up, brushed the sand from his thobe, and walked toward the car. 2 soldiers stepped out in full uniform. They looked at the father, and one said, "Come here." When the father reached them, one demanded, "Give us your ID." The father asked anxiously, "Is everything all right, brothers?" The reply came coldly, "We want to verify your identity." "And who are these women with you?" The father answered with dignity, "This is my wife, and these are my 2 daughters." He reached out to hand over his ID, but the soldier didn't just check it. He grabbed the father's arm with unjustified force and dragged him roughly toward the police car. In that moment, the scent of gunpowder mixed with gun oil, and the sound of their heavy boots on the hard ground, made the father realize these men didn't come to protect anyone. They had come for something else entirely. In an instant, the soldiers transformed into human beasts. They dragged the father to the back of the car. One opened the trunk and pulled out a coarse rope. With utter cruelty, they began binding his wrists and body, tying him up as if he were a prize catch. Not a human being, the father screamed with all his might. A scream that shook the desert night. On the other side, the scene was heartbreaking. The mother and daughters froze in terror for a moment before the air exploded with screams. In the chaos, driven by fear and confusion, the wife ran into the darkness, seeking help from the mirage, while the two daughters could not leave their father. The two girls rushed frantically toward the police car, trying to pull their father from the soldiers' grip. They were crying, "Father, Father." In that moment, the desert was no longer a place for a picnic. It had become the theater of a nightmare. The girls' soft attempts to save their father were like trying to stop a hurricane with a child's hands. The confrontation ended in a flash. Coarse hands, hands that claimed to protect the law, grabbed the girls' young bodies. They dragged them brutally, their feet scraping against the rough sand. They forced the girls into the back of the police car, while they screamed with all their strength. And the father watched what was happening to his daughters. He had nothing left but his voice. Screams of oppression that shook the night. Screams that weren't asking for survival, but for death. Before he had to witness the rest of the scene, the physical nightmare ended, and the nightmare of the soul began. With utter vileness, the soldiers threw the girls onto the sand, then tossed the father aside like worthless debris. They sped off, leaving behind a cloud of dust that covered the faces of the broken family. The girls untied their father. He wasn't screaming now. He was weeping with silent, burning tears. Tears that washed the dust of humiliation from his face, but carved a wound in his heart that would never heal. They gathered their strength, got into their car, and drove into the pitch black to find the mother. After a long search, they found her, collapsed from exhaustion. They drove back to Riyadh. No one spoke the entire way. Their silence was louder than any words. A silence hiding a volcano about to erupt. They returned to their home. The father closed the door behind them, but he could not close the door on the horrific memories. The father entered a state of total shock. Imagine this. A man, a proud head of a family, sitting in the corner of a dark room for 3 days and nights. Not a drop of water, not a morsel of food, and not a wink of sleep. His body was in the room, but his soul was still there, in that patch of sand, bound by ropes, watching the most precious things he owned being violated while he was helpless. He was weeping from the heart. He asked himself every second, how? Why? How can I live with this shame? What do I do? Where do I go? On the third day, as despair tightened its grip, one thought flashed in his mind. He decided to carry his wound to the highest authority in the land. He decided to go to the father of everyone, King Khalid. On the fourth day, the father emerged from his home. He headed directly toward the gates of King Khalid's palace in Riyadh. At the gates, the palace guards stopped him. They questioned him sternly. "What do you want? What is your grievance?" But the father, choosing to shield his family's honor, refused to utter a single word about what had happened. With a voice stifled by gasping sobs, he would only say, "I will not speak. I will tell no one what has befallen me, except for King Khalid himself. I must meet the king." Listen to this struggle. The guards were simply doing their duty to maintain security, while this man was desperately trying to protect what remained of his dignity. This scene repeated for 3 consecutive days. He would arrive at the break of dawn and leave late into the night, refusing to go, refusing to talk, finding solace only in his bitter weeping before the palace walls. The sight was heartbreaking. Eventually, the word reached the inside. The news was brought to King Khalid. "Your Majesty, there is a man at the gate who has been there for 3 days, weeping beyond description. He refuses to speak to anyone. He says he has a secret he will only reveal to you personally." Finally, the palace doors opened, and the father entered the private office of His Majesty King Khalid bin Abdulaziz. The father then sat across from King Khalid, who was seated at his desk. Imagine the scene. The father, broken and defeated, began to speak. His voice trembled, and his words were choked with sobs. He started recounting the details of that fateful night. The police car he once thought meant safety, the rough roads, and the screams of his daughters that still echo in his ears. The King Khalid, known for his gentleness and mercy, listened at first with shock. His face showed disbelief that this could happen in his land. But as the father delved into the details of the brutality committed under the seal of the state, the king's features changed terrifyingly. His veins bulged, his brow furrowed, and those merciful eyes turned into embers of silent rage. A heavy silence filled the hall. The calm before the storm. The king gripped the arm of his chair until his knuckles turned white. When the father finished, the silence was not acceptance. It was the boiling of the volcano of justice. Then King Khalid turned to his director. His voice was not low this time. It carried the tone of an order that cannot be revoked. "Hear these words," the king said, his eyes shining with truth. "I want you to arrest these criminals immediately. No sun shall rise upon them, and they shall not taste sleep except under the edge of the sword." The order was clear. A total mobilization of all security branches. No place to hide, no immunity for those who betrayed the trust. Then, in a moment of pure humanity, King Khalid turned to the father collapsed on the floor. His voice shifted from rage to fatherly tenderness. He reached out and said in a confident Nodi dialect, "Rest assured. Go home and do not worry. Wait for my certain news." Following the king's order, the Ministry of Interior turned into a beehive that did not rest. The king didn't ask for a routine investigation. He demanded heads. Every patrol car that went out on duty that night was tracked. There was the logbook where everything is written. When did the car leave? Who was in it? Where did it go? But the criminals were clever. They hadn't logged their departure to that remote area. Here, field intelligence took over. The father and his daughters were called to identify the car from among dozens of vehicles. One of the girls pointed with a trembling hand. "This is it. I remember the dent on the corner of the bumper." The identity of the driver and his partner was revealed. Suddenly, the sound of a door being smashed, heavy boots. This time, the boots of the Special Security Forces. The soldiers were dragged from their beds in total shock. They weren't asked, "Did you do it?" They were told one sentence that froze the blood in their veins. "King Khalid is waiting for you." Upon searching the car, the definitive proof was found. A small thread from the dress of one of the girls was caught in the handle of the back door. One thread was enough to tie their necks to the executioner's rope. Inside a security headquarters in Riyadh, the soldiers were placed in a lineup before the father and his daughters. Imagine the scene. A wide room. On one side, a row of men in military uniform, their features frozen, trying to hide their terror. On the other side, behind one-way glass, stood the father and his daughters. The lights hit the faces one by one. An absolute silence, broken only by the girl's ragged breathing. Suddenly, the blood froze. The eldest daughter pointed with a shaking finger and, in a voice that sounded like it was coming from a deep well, sighed, "This is him." Then they pointed to the other. And this one. They had recognized them. The investigation concluded quickly under the weight of undeniable evidence. The criminals collapsed one after the other, confessing to the heinous crime that shook the dignity of the uniform they wore. The next morning, the news was brought to the palace. "Your Majesty, they have been arrested. They confessed to everything, and they will be referred to trial for their just punishment." But King Khalid's reaction was not protocol. Imagine the scene. King Khalid shouted with all his might, a shout that shook the walls of the office. The shout of a man who does not accept delays when honor is violated. He said with a rage never seen before, "Trial? What trial? The crime is clear and confession is the master of evidence." Now, the merciful king turned into a decisive judge. He looked at his director armed the security commanders, and said in a tone as sharp as a blade, "I want them executed before noon today, before the sun crosses the meridian. Let justice be done. I want the people to see God's justice upon those who betrayed the trust and violated the sanctuary of the home." It was a royal decree with no turning back. In those moments, the clocks in Riyadh were racing, not just to mark noon, but to mark the end of the lives of those who thought the darkness of night would hide them from the eye of justice. In that moment, a different kind of silence filled the hall. A silence of confusion. The director of the private office, knowing the legal details and procedures, felt a heavy responsibility. He stepped forward cautiously, his voice trembling slightly as he saw the fire in King Khalid's eyes. He whispered, "Your Majesty." But King Khalid cut him off with a shout that settled all legal debate. People's honor is not a matter for justifications. He who betrays the trust, terrifies the innocent, and violates women in the name of the state, his prize is the sword, period. The director fell silent. Everyone realized that King Khalid was not just applying a punishment. He was establishing the soul of a nation that does not allow even its own men to touch a single hair of a citizen without right. There was no room for further discussion. The king continued with intensity. "These are two chaste girls, violated against their will, with utter brutality, before the eyes of their bound father. And who did this? Security men, those who were supposed to protect this family. This is not a case of simple crime. This is hiraba, war against society. This is corruption on earth. This is high treason against the state and the uniform they wear. I tell you, let the sun not cross the meridian except that their heads have rolled. Do you understand?" The king pointed toward the horizon. He didn't say go to court. He issued a sovereign, final judgment. He saw that they had committed high treason against the faith and the homeland. The director bowed his head. He ran to race against time, for it was approaching 11 in the morning, and little time remained until the sun reached its peak. The king ordered the father to be brought to the public square in the heart of Riyadh. He wanted him to see with his own eyes how the state avenges their dignity. In the execution square, imagine the scene. The sun is in the middle of the sky, sending down its scorching rays to reveal everything. The square is packed with people who heard the news and were shaken to their core. Listen to this silence. The executioner stepped forward, the gleam of his blade shining under the heat. The criminals were brought out and forced to their knees before the crowds who could not believe the speed of justice. A terrifying silence fell. In that moment, Riyadh was not just witnessing an execution. It was witnessing the birth of a new era of security, where young and old realized that people's honor under King Khalid is a red line. for which necks are given. And at the exact moment the sun reached the meridian, the heads that betrayed the trust rolled. Injustice fell into the dust, and the father's head rose high as he saw the blood of betrayal stain the earth that King Khalid's sword had purified. As soon as he saw the justice carried out, he raised his hand and cried out, weeping with his loudest voice, "God protect King Khalid! God protect King Khalid! He has taken my right and the right of my daughters." It was not a cry of weakness this time, but the cry of a soul that had reclaimed its dignity. He repeated it through his sobs, realizing that the state he sought refuge in did not fail him. King Khalid's justice did not end with the execution of the oppressor. It began with the mending of souls. He knew the sword heals the wound of dignity, but it cannot protect the future from a harsh social judgment. To shield these two girls, the king chose two of the nation's finest young men, noblemen of faith and character, to be their husbands. In a celebration of protection, he sent a clear message to all: the victim shall not be punished twice. To ensure they would never know brokenness again, the king granted each couple a royal gift of 1 million riyals. In the early 80s, this was a fortune worth over $1.1 million by today's standards. It wasn't just a gift. It was a tender embrace to wipe away the bitterness of the past. King Khalid proved that a great state does more than just strike the hand of the oppressor. It honors the oppressed with kindness. For truly, justice is the foundation of the kingdom. The case was closed.